This story starts in a school, where we find a girl lost in thought about her brother. Her moment of contemplation is suddenly interrupted when another girl bursts into the classroom, frantically calling for everyone's attention. She excitedly announces that she's just seen the cutest guy in the office. Apparently, he's a new transfer student and a third year. As soon as the girl from before hears this, she realizes it must be her brother. Before we dive deeper into the story, the girl narrates that her brother was thought to have died in a plane crash with their parents, but miraculously, he returned after 10 long years. When she saw her brother for the first time, she could hardly believe her eyes. Their grandpa had the same reaction upon seeing him alive. When her brother looked at her, she was startled, but he just smiled in response and asked if she was his sister Daeon. Suddenly, Daeon is yanked out of her flashback by a bunch of girls trying to bully her. These troublemakers demand that she hand over the gym uniform she's brought with her. Daeon tries to reason with them, pointing out that if she gives up her uniform, she won't have anything to wear. Blondezilla just snickers at this and then starts yelling at her. She's so loud that even the other girls in the classroom can't ignore the commotion she's causing for no good reason. Blondezilla finally crosses the line and smacks Daeon on the head, making it clear that she better hand over the uniform, or else she won't be nice to her anymore. While I wouldn't exactly call slapping someone on the head being nice, I guess no one is about to argue with this over-the-top Blondezilla. Even the other girls in the classroom just look away, not wanting to get involved or stop her from getting all high and mighty. It looks like Daeon has no choice but to face the humiliation and silently comply with the demand. The next scene takes us to third year class 2, where the entire class is being introduced to this new handsome fella, who has just transferred into this school. The teacher mentions that he's been living overseas for a long time and asks everyone to be friendly and help him settle in. All the girls in the class can't help but blush at how hot he is. Even the bullies in the room can't resist sneering, while the other students with average looks feel a pang of jealousy at the new guy's good looks. The teacher directs him to an empty seat at the back of the room, and he makes his way over, ready to get settled in his new spot. As the new guy walks to his seat, we spot a redhead guy named Jae-hyung, and we can tell that he is feeling absolutely annoyed. Let's face it, he's just jealous that this new guy is stealing the spotlight with his looks. The big guy seated behind Jae-hyung gives a subtle signal. Jae-hyung quickly catches on to what his friend is trying to say and decides to take action. He extends his foot out, aiming to trip the new guy as he walks by. But Jae-hyung's plan doesn't go as smoothly as he'd hoped, because this new guy quickly halts, leaving Jae-hyung gritting his teeth in frustration. He had timed his foot extension perfectly, but it still didn't work at all. Meanwhile, the new guy, who goes by the name Jin by the way, just gives Jae-hyung a death glare for his pathetic attempt, though he does not say a word. The scene then flashes back to Jin's past, where we see a blonde guy advising Jin to avoid getting into fights once he returns to Korea. Jin lets out a sigh and responds that he's already aware of this much. The senior perks up to hear this, and curiously asks about how Jin knows. Jin then explains that he wouldn't enter any combat situation without having enough intel about his surroundings. Well, it looks like Jin's response isn't exactly what the senior was expecting to hear, because it sounds way too hardcore. But Jin continues, sharing his wisdom from years of experience. He explains that making a rash decision could cost him his life, and such a mistake would be a rookie move. This makes the senior even more uncomfortable, and our boy goes on to remind his senior that he has survived plenty of battlefields over the past 10 years, because he knows his stuff. Suddenly, Major Kang, the senior, tells Jin to stop and clarifies that he wasn't referring to all this strategic nonsense, but rather, he does not want our boy to engage in fights because he wants to prevent the poor offender from getting beaten up badly. In the present moment, Major's advice lingers in our boy's mind, so he does not say anything to the bully in order to avoid fighting. The teacher then notices Jin standing there idly and asks if everything's okay. Jin simply flashes a pleasant smile, saying he is good, and continues past Jae-hyung, ignoring him. Jae-hyung snickers once again, thinking Jin is just a wimp afraid of getting picked on. Even the guy who tried to trip him earlier smiles, pleased with Jin's reaction. Once Jin reaches his seat, the teacher tells one of the students to help him get ready for the first class. With that, the teacher leaves after wishing Jin a good time studying. The student sitting next to Jin quickly introduces himself as Youngchan Park, and our boy returns the gesture, introducing himself as Ijin Yu. Youngchan then nervously glances over his shoulder to make sure no one's watching, and leans in to whisper to our boy that he saw what Jae-hyung was trying to do. He explains that Jae-hyung Lee is a troublemaker, but there's also another bully to watch out for, which is Hyuk-jin Ju, who's just as bad. Jin takes a closer look at both of the troublemakers, while Youngchan further reveals that the next class is math. Jin thanks his new friend for the heads up, and Youngchan is relieved to see that our boy isn't just another bully. He tells our boy to feel free to ask him anything, and he'll do his best to help out. The math teacher arrives and instructs everyone to open their textbooks. He starts solving math problems on the board. Some students are busy taking notes, while others look utterly bored. Jin takes in the scene, noticing that Young-chan is diligently paying attention, while some students are dozing off or messing around on their smartphones. He also glances out the window and sees a group of students playing in the playground. Jin's mind drifts back to his days as a mercenary. He remembers the heavy rain, feeling utterly exhausted and battered. The chaos of his past life, the constant roar of guns and explosions, seems to have left a permanent mark on his mind. Yet, in the present moment, as he closes his eyes, there's no unpleasant noise. Everything feels unexpectedly peaceful and serene. As dawn approaches, students start heading home. Among them is Dayan, who spots her brother standing nearby. She's momentarily startled and asks if he's been waiting for her. He replies that yes, he was hoping to walk her home. However, he adds that if she has other plans, she's welcome to go on her own. Dayan quickly glances around and insists she has no other plans, but we can tell that she is still really anxious about walking with our boy. Jin then states that if she doesn't have anything pressing, they'll walk home together. Eventually, the girl agrees. Later on the street, the siblings walk side by side, both clearly feeling awkward. Jin tries to break the ice, and asks if she's feeling awkward too. Dayan is startled to hear this, and quickly insists she's not awkward at all. But Jin reassures her that it's okay, as he's feeling pretty awkward himself. Thankfully, this remark finally makes our girl relaxed a bit. Jin then reveals that he was only 9 at the time of the accident, so he doesn't remember much about his remaining family, including his sister. He points out that it must be pretty strange for her too, since she was only 7 and probably doesn't remember much either. Dayan stays silent, because this is in fact true. Just then, she suddenly hears some familiar voices around the corner, and her feet suddenly come to a halt. When Dayan looks at the source of the voice, she spots one of the girls who bullied her in class. She is apparently the friend of that blonde girl who slapped Dayan in the school today. The bully girl immediately notices Dayan and calls her out. Dayan breaks into a sweat, feeling uncertain about how she is going to handle the situation. One of the guys sitting with the bully girl asks who Dayan is. The bully girl reveals that Dayan is the girl Huijin dislikes, and Huijin is the same blonde girl who slapped her earlier. The bully girl also spots her brother walking along with Dayan and starts teasing her, asking if she's out with her boyfriend. She adds some colorful remarks, saying she didn't know bitches could date as well. Our girl quickly gets timid, and frantically tries to reassure her that Jin is just her brother. Well, this comes as a surprise to the bully girl, who didn't know Dayan had a brother. After hearing the rude comments, Jin asks Dayan if this girl is a friend of hers. Dayan timidly agrees, and admits they know each other from their homeroom. But the cocky girl doesn't let up, calling Dayan a bitch again and asks since when they became friends. Dayan trembles as the bully continues her rant. Jin then gives the girl a cold stare, one that's enough to freeze the hell itself. The guy sitting next to the bully girl doesn't appreciate Jin's sharp glare. He gets annoyed and warns Jin to watch himself if he doesn't want to get his ass yanked. Jin continues to glare, which only annoys the fatty more. The bully girl starts egging him on and provokes him to pick a fight with Jin. Eventually, the fatty's patience wears thin and he strides over to our boy, and Jin quickly shoves Dayan back and gets face to face with this stupid head. The fatty demands to know if Jin is trying to act tough in front of his sister. Jin notices how defenseless the fatty is, standing so close that all his vital points are wide open for attack. What's even more amusing is that the fatty isn't carrying any weapons. All he has is this giant ass of his. Jin can't help but feel that this guy is being rash and leaving himself wide open. But then, Major Kang's words echo in his mind once again, which reminds him to not pick fights with anyone. Jin lets out a sigh, averts his gaze, and decides to walk away quietly. But Fatty isn't letting Jin off the hook so easily. He grabs Jin by the collar and raises his hand, ready to deliver a sharp slap to Jin's face. Before he can make contact, Dayan rushes to intervene. She quickly bows down her head and explains to the bully that Jin has been living overseas for most of his life and isn't used to the way things work in Korea. On the other hand, the bully girl snickers to see her begging, while Dayan continues to tremble with fear. The fatty, however, snaps at Dayan, saying he doesn't care if Jin was living overseas or not. Seeing his sister so terrified and shaking in fear boils Jin's blood. Fueled by anger, he grabs Fatty's wrist and yanks it. Fatty squirms in pain, even though Jin hasn't done anything particularly aggressive. Jin throws his bag down and takes off his school coat. Calmly, he tells his sister to wait for him and covers her face with the coat, assuring her it won't take more than a minute. Just then, the rowdy thug charges at him from behind. Jin effortlessly twirls around and delivers a solid slap to the thug's face. The single slap sends the thug staggering, blood spilling from his mouth as he stumbles backward and crashes to the ground like a sack of potatoes. The cocky girl and the other goon feel a chill run down their spines, and I can tell they are about to crap their pants if our boy continues like this. Meanwhile, Jin lets out a sigh of disappointment, knowing he's broken his promise to Major Kang. But, I guess this is not his fault entirely, as this fatty bastard had this coming. The other goon is so terrified that he has started to reconsider making any move against our boy.